What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock, what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the overall market, how this may affect Tesla, what's going on with SPY and the QQQ and the Nasdaq, what's going on with NEO and many other tickers out there like Nvda and Apple, and talk about how on earth all the news that's coming out will affect them, what news is affecting Tesla right now, and how is the share price looking at the current technicals. Before I break anything down about all this information though, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you put in $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 10 free stocks, and any could be a free Tesla share. The offer ends very soon in just 8 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Alright, so Tesla in the 1 hour time frame is still trying to pump in the after hours, and I warned you guys about this during the intraday update. However, when we started off the day, I also reminded you yesterday that Tesla had this bearish divergence that developed, and Tesla was at about 221 per share. However, this is what happened. We got this sell off in the morning, even during the pre market, and Tesla came all the way down to where the 50 was, even below that, and it touched 212. Now, if we look at our levels, I told you guys that if Tesla did get a break below this 217 area, you'd be watching this thing come all the way down to 214. If that failed us, the next level was 212.5. However, this was a fake sell-off that ended up getting caught up in a lot of buying pressure after the market got some bullish news from the Economic Optimism Index report. This was higher than expected, as optimism is not as bad as many people were projecting, many economists were projecting, and the outlook is still looking not the best for the economy, but it was better than what many economists were expecting. As a result of that, the market got a very positive reaction. However, it wasn't just that. Simultaneously, there were a lot of shorts on Tesla and a lot of shorts in the market. And we started to see the market squeeze a little bit. It wasn't absolutely massive, but we're still seeing some good volume and some more buying pressure that still perpetuates. As a result, the market pumped a little bit, then the market started trading sideways. The QQQ, however, was very flat and ended up closing a little bit in the red, as it's showing some signs of relative weakness, and I warned you guys about this in the morning. However, SPY held up quite nicely, got a pump at the very end, and now we're going to be talking about some important levels to watch for. As for Tesla, it continued to trade in this range between 218 to 220, and then I made an intraday update right over here where I told you guys why did Tesla drop then pump. Well, Tesla dropped in the morning, that is true, and then we got a nice pump after the data came out, and as a result, I told you guys that if Tesla managed to break and hold above 218, we're going to be watching it push for 221. And I told you that if it broke 221 at the last minute and ended up doing that, we expect this thing to start pushing pretty hard. 222.74 could come, and if it broke that, 225 could come. Now, in my previous videos, I told you guys that things were looking very mixed for Tesla, and that's because the technicals could flip pretty quickly on a dime. The technicals were looking kind of weak yesterday near the very top that we saw. It looked to me like Tesla would sell off a bit, and we got the sell off. It actually came intraday, however. Then Tesla got a nice bounce after the data came out, and this shows how quickly things could turn in the markets. That's why it's very important, and that's the reason why I look over both the bullish and bearish cases and talk about these different levels. And I give you guys an intraday update to warn you about this bullish move anyways. But besides that, I want to break down something else that's going on in the markets and what the news is saying about us moving forward. Then I'm going to break down the levels in the markets and what you have to watch for when it comes to confirmation. But let me just remind you guys that we have Dave & Buster's earnings. I know they announced like they're going to be opening more locations in Australia, and some good news came out for them. For tomorrow, we have GameStop's earnings. I know a lot of retail are going to be watching this one, and it's going to likely cause a big amount of volatility for many memes out there. And then on top of that, we have DocuSign, just a couple of others for Thursday, and then we have NEO on Friday. I'm very excited for this one. NEO is looking pretty decent, approaching its earnings too. Now, as far as data goes, for Wednesday, there's not too much coming out, just some mortgage data, some imports and exports data, and nothing else that's too major. We have some oil imports data, but nothing too huge is coming out tomorrow. As far as the data goes for Tesla, let me just quickly talk about these levels now. We're continuing to see the Model 3 listings going up. Besides that, everything else is looking pretty good. That's because of the fact that many people are probably still waiting for the new models. But it's not just that. I mean, Tesla's trying to liquidate this inventory as fast as possible. That's why This is now qualifying for a lot of tax incentives, and Tesla's working very hard to promote it. We're going to be waiting for the new model, though. I think the Model 3 looks very, very nice, at least the upgraded version, and that's likely going to help them boost their sales. But you have to remember, these are the older models and the older versions of them. So considering the fact that we are still in June, I would love to see more sales for the Model 3 to boost their overall revenue and etc. Because once again, if you look at their last earnings, the margins of Tesla did get eaten away after all the price cuts, at least to some degree. And this was a negative piece of news for many investors. So that's very important to consider, and that's very important to note. But with all the models coming out going forward, this could change big time because a lot of people are very interested in the Roadster and also the Cybertruck. I'm very excited about the Cybertruck. It's coming out very soon. Deliveries will start in just a couple of months, possibly. And that is going to be very bullish when the time comes. But until then, I'm still just a little bit concerned about the Model 3. I mean, these inventory levels are just rocketing all the way up to over 1200. We're very close to 1200 right now. And it's not a good thing for the time being. I'm really hoping that Tesla could offset this once the new upgraded version comes out. There was more news that came out about the Model 3 getting more tax incentives, and this helped it a lot. I'm hoping this causes more sales to come out. This is helping Tesla, at least to some degree. In California, you could actually buy it now for about 30,000 or under if you qualify for the incentives, which depends on many requirements from people's incomes. And then there are going to be federal tax incentives as well, which are going to be a part of it. And I'm not giving any taxation advice, by the way. I'm just saying what this article is talking about. And for the Model 3, this specifically is qualifying based off its production capabilities and its battery components. That's why it qualifies. Other models are not qualifying the way this one is. And we saw a lot of price cuts to the Model 3 very recently again. So the price cuts coming out are incentivizing more people to buy them. There's clearly a demand issue for this model. It's not just because of production, in my opinion. And that's the reason why investors wanted Elon Musk to specifically present the new Model 3. We're really hoping that something could be done to boost their sales on this, at least for the older models. But so far, hasn't really happened. And we are approaching the summertime. So even if this doesn't sell as well, the new version should sell a lot better. I'm hoping for that. And we need to see more sales to, once again, fix this big dichotomy in their data right now when it comes to their overall listings. And you can see, once again, I'm still very, very excited for their future earnings going forward. I think they're going to do well in terms of deliveries. I don't think Tesla's done just yet, or I don't think they're going to be done ever. I think Tesla just has so much potential. But the thing is, like I said before, those margins are going to be even more important moving forward. The summer tends to be a good period for them, so earnings should be pretty decent. I think they should try to meet on them. But what's going to be more important would be how many deliveries do they get compared to their production? And then how are their margins going to be eaten up by these deliveries? If they need more deliveries, will they end up getting weaker margins or vice versa? So we'll just have to wait and see. Now, volume for Tesla has been pretty high. We're getting a lot of volume. There's still lots of buyers stepping in, and there's no true sign of this thing now downtrending after the big bounce it got today. And once again, you can't always see that the day before from the technical side, but I did warn you guys about this intraday. And I caught this move while Tesla was still in like the 210s, right? Around like the 217, 218 levels when I was talking about it. And we would have caught some very, very nice moves after that. But anyways, looking at the data, the short volume on Tesla is still going up. So there's still a lot of shorting going on. The shorts are not giving up. And likely what's going to help this thing pump even higher would be a short squeeze. We're still seeing more signs of it. The price price ratio is high because Tesla's outperforming the market very well. And for now, compared to SPY, Tesla's once again outperforming. And that's very ironic because SPY is performing better than the QQQ, and Tesla's outperforming SPY too. On top of that, what's interesting is Barclays has come out and they're reiterating that Tesla's going to outperform the market. Citigroup is saying that they're neutral on Tesla. Wedbush is saying Tesla's going to outperform. They're reiterating it. And then Piper Sandler came out and said Tesla's going to outperform the market. So we're getting some very, very good amounts of positive pieces of feedback for Tesla and positive uh, upgrades. That's some very good news for Tesla. And for now, it's helping the share price as buyers are continuing to step in. However, like I said before, my only warning for all Tesla investors would be the NASDAQ and the QQQ. Once these things start tanking, or if they do start to get a big correction, that will slow Tesla down to some degree. We're not ready yet, but it's just something you should keep in the back of your mind. Now, as far as data goes, Tesla tends to be very strong in the month of June, up 78% of the time. On top of that, Wednesdays tend to be green days about 48.95% of the time. So that's pretty decent. And Tesla tends to do very well during the second hour and also during the fourth hour of the trading day. The fourth approaching the fifth hour tend to be the strongest hours. And you can see today, even during the second to last hour, Tesla could do well. But specifically, those two tend to be the strongest hours. Now, what else is crazy about Tesla is the shorts were piling in again. I mean, just a couple of days ago, we saw 55 million Tesla shares shorted. And with all the shorting going on, excuse me, sorry guys, with all the shorting going on, you know, we're starting to see a lot of them covering, and this is helping to drive Tesla's share price up. Now, there was news about Elon Musk. I mentioned this in the morning. I'm just going to briefly talk about this. Elon Musk is open to the idea of licensing their Autopilot and more to automakers following the Ford deal. That was some good news. This could be part of why Tesla's pumping, at least helping it out to some degree. I mentioned this in the morning, and Tesla didn't get a very positive reaction initially, but now this is starting to spread like crazy across different headlines. It's just barely spreading right now, and that is helping Tesla to some degree. So, very interesting and very worth noting for the time being. So I'm going to close some of these tabs just so that my computer doesn't lag. Sometimes that's happened before. But now let's break down what's going on with the charts. And right now we're in some very interesting territory on Tesla. Now, Tesla's pumping in the after hours, continuing to get some buying pressure. It's up about almost $4 around the 225 area. However, I do see a red flag about the rally. There is technically a bearish divergence developing, but there's no sign of Tesla tanking off of it or getting a big rug pull as of right now. So despite this bearish divergence, Tesla's continuing to pump. It's developing, right? This divergence is developing, but there's no sign of it causing Tesla to drop from here. Looking at the bigger time frames, Tesla's still looking strong in the 1 hour. The 4 hour is starting to flip in favor of the bulls, and Tesla's continuing to look pretty decent. However, it's also very important that we look at confirmation before making any moves in the charts, because there are many times where there are going to be these fake outs. For instance, in the morning, Tesla came dumping pretty hard down to the 212.5 area. That is the support I told you guys about, because I told you if it broke below for 214, we're going to be testing 212.5. And that's where Tesla bounced at 212.53 almost exactly. After Tesla bounced, this was like a fake drop before it started pushing. And like I said before, it seems like a lot of these institutions, someone out there knew we were going to get some positive data. They knew the market was going to pump, and they had this fake drop in the morning just to trigger lots of stops. And that's what they tend to do. Now for Tesla, we have some very, very nice looking trends right here. It's a little bit overbought, so it may cool off a little bit in the morning. But like I said before, it's still looking pretty nice. On the smaller time frames, however, let me just note that I saw a potential divergence developing. There is technically a bearish divergence right here if it does reject up 225. It could get a small pullback by the time we open in the pre-market, because once again, it pumped very hard in the after hours. So a small pullback from this 225 area to retest 222.74, if not 220. Those are going to become the next supports / resistances depending on where we are. And then if anything, it could always bounce intraday and continue pushing later on, depending on the news, depending on the reactions. Okay, so let's just hypothetically say Tesla opens up around 221 or something like that, just hypothetically. I just wanted to talk about how if Tesla turns bearish, okay, if there's some kind of bearish move, Tesla's going to be testing 221. That was the previous resistance. Now it's going to become support. If Tesla breaks below 221, watch 220, then 218. And if that fails us, there's 217 followed by 214, then 212.51. Watch all of these as supports. If Tesla is very bullish, let's just say it opens at, once again, 222. We have some resistance, or we're going to have some resistance at 222.74. And then if that breaks, you're going to be watching this 225 zone. You can see Tesla has some resistance here between 225 and 225.5. There's some resistance right around this 225 zone. If that breaks, you're going to be watching 227, 228.67, and then 230. 230 is going to be the strongest resistance of them all. Okay, so watch all of these levels very carefully. The chart is telling me that this thing may cool off a little bit in the morning, or at least during the pre-market, but then we're going to be watching where it lands, and we're going to see where it bounces from there. But make sure you watch all these levels and watch how this all affects it. Even if Tesla continues to pump, because the trend is still favoring the bulls, I mean, there's no sign of it dropping after hours or anything like that for now. But if something happens, okay, let's just say it continues pushing and it makes its way up to these higher levels, be on the lookout for the QQQ and the NASDAQ. Make sure you watch those very carefully because the QQQ and the NASDAQ are showing some signs of weakness. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to like tank or anything like that, but you have to watch for confirmation of those. And at the same time, you have to be careful because when the QQQ or if they start tanking in the future, let's just say it takes a week and a half, that will slow Tesla down. Is it happening right now? There's no confirmation of it, but it could happen soon once I show you what's going on with the QQQ. That's just my only warning with Tesla for the time being, okay? I want to warn you guys. I want you guys to be prepared. But for now, the trend looks pretty good. And Tesla looks like as long as it holds these levels, it has more potential. As long as it manages to get its way back up to 225 in the future or the next couple of days, it could keep pumping. So it still looks good. Watch support and resistance. For SPY, this is looking pretty good, but it's been range trading between 426 to about 428.5. It's been stuck between these zones, and it has been holding up in the after hours. Now, there was a fake dump in the morning. We got this touch of 426. If it broke below 426, you're going to be watching this 425 to 426 zone for a while. And if that failed, let's just say it broke below that hypothetically, that would be the bearish case. And this thing would have come down pretty hard into the lower 420s to about 423, which is where we have this gap. Now that would be the bearish case, okay? And also you're going to be watching support at these different levels. So if we're bearish hypothetically, okay, watch these levels. You're going to be watching 428 as support, 427.5, 427.37 as of right now, which is where the 50 EMA happens to be. And if that fails us, the support at 427 is not that strong compared to like 426.5, followed by 426. 426 is the strongest support. We need to hold that one specifically, and another strong one is 427.5. If 426 ends up breaking all the way down, if we break everything, we break below 426, that's your confirmation that this thing is going to start tanking quite quickly. So make sure you watch these levels very carefully. And also when I talk about a level breaking, that does not mean it has to break it for like a few seconds or a few minutes. You need to see a strong candlestick and you have to see a very strong break of it. Not like a little touch of the wick like this one, like we saw in the morning. That is not a breakout or kind of like a confirmation candle. You need something stronger. Now, if we're bullish on SPY, you're going to be watching resistance at 428.5. If it manages to break this, if it breaks and holds this in a strong manner, not just like a little touch, a little baby touch, we need something strong. If that happens, it has the potential to retest 429, and it's likely not going to stop there. It's going to try to make its way up to this high it made previously to 429.62. And if it breaks that, we're going to be seeing the 430 to 431.5 area. So it has potential to push up more if we get the confirmation of it breaking above 428.5 and holding it in a strong manner, and then potentially retesting the high we made previously. If it fails to do that, okay, depending on how we get the reactions tomorrow, if it fails to do so, you're going to be watching support. 427.5 is a very significant support. You can see we went around it throughout the entire day, very sideways. I was warning you guys in the morning about some sideways price action, but SPY, it held up nicely. Now, there is a risk of the market potentially slowing down for like the more medium term over the next couple of trading days. There's a bearish cross on the 4-hour time frame, and it is very possible for the market to slow down. It's a tiny bit more likely, but I just want to note that I'm not too confined to that notion. I'm open-minded. I'm going to be watching for confirmation of any move. You could argue that the market technically made like a new low right here, then like a lower high. Sure, that's fine. But if anything, support held at 426. So we didn't truly break it yet. And that's why you have to watch for confirmation. So once again, watch those levels carefully. Watch which direction we break in and watch them very, very closely. Whichever strong direction we get a break in will dictate which direction this thing moves in. So that's also going to dictate Tesla. So be very careful with that. For Ford, I know I forgot to mention this in my other video. For Ford, if we're bullish, we're going to be watching a break above 13. If it breaks that, we're going to be watching this zone right here, 13.25. If we're bearish, it's going to come all the way down to about 12.5. Watch that very carefully, that range right there. It's been stuck for quite a while. For the QQQ, if you're bullish on the QQQ, and let me just know, this thing was pretty wild today. We got a false break above 353. They triggered a bunch of stops right here, and then they started to let this thing pump afterwards. It was very sideways and got a red close barely. Very, very flat, and it's not showing as much strength as before. Also, there's a bearish cross on the 4-hour time frame. There's also a larger bearish divergence that is still, possible. It's still possible this is going to play out, but we need confirmation. If you're bullish on the triple Q, you're going to be watching 355.5. If it breaks that, there's going to be 356, that entire zone right there. We need a very strong break above 356 to turn bullish. If it does that, this thing is going to fly possibly to 357.5 to potentially 358. Now, if that ends up not working out and it ends up just continuing to chop around, watch support at 354. If 354 fails us, it's going to come all the way down to this zone right here between 354 to 353. There's a lot of chop around here, and there's a lot of touches here where it tries to bounce, so it's trying to hold the support. The confirmation for the bears is going to be a break below 353 in a strong manner, not like a weak little touch from like a tiny candle, or I'm sorry, a tiny wick. We need something strong. If it breaks down in a strong manner, it's going to come tumbling down. It has some support, obviously, around like 352. I last checked, it was like around just some support, but the strongest support is going to be 350, and the odds will greatly favor 350 if we do break below 353 in a strong manner. Now, I also want to note that there's a possible head and shoulders developing here, so be very careful. We have to be very careful with this. If it does tank pretty hard, that could slow Tesla down too. But we don't have confirmation yet, so watch this all very carefully. Let me just note that compared to the QQQ, Tesla is very strong. There's no sign of weakness yet, or like no major sign in the after hours. So the odds are favoring Tesla holding up at these higher levels. But like I said before, if the QQQ gets like that big break to the downside, that could slow Tesla down. So watch that carefully and watch these supports carefully. I'm not saying the QQQ will do that tomorrow. I'm simply stating that you have to watch for confirmation. And there is a head and shoulders that's possible, but it's not, there's no guarantee it's going to lead to a big drop yet until we truly see this thing break support. It hasn't done that yet. It's holding nicely. And if it continues to hold, this could help Tesla continue to pump. But if it breaks down really soon, whether it happens, tomorrow, if it happens by Friday, who knows when, hypothetically, then it's not going to be the best for Tesla. Just wanted to warn you about that. We don't have confirmation yet, but keep that in the back of your mind. AMC is going to make a big move because of GME's earnings on Wednesday. So if it breaks out, it could break the 200 EMA on the 1 hour time frame, get closer to $5. If it fails to do so, it could crash to about 4.5 or lower. Just wanted to note that. The HYG, this is forming potentially not really much of a divergence. It's very, very flat as well, going back and forth. It held between the 250 EMA, and now it's fighting this resistance. It has major resistance at 75, also around 74.6, around this zone right here. So it's just chopping around, not really doing anything. Once it picks a big direction, this is going to dictate where SPY moves, in my opinion. For NEO, it's looking pretty good. Got a very, very nice bullish divergence bounce right here, technical bounce too. It got a false break below 7.5, then made its way right back up pretty quickly. If you're bullish on NEO, and I'm actually leaning a little bit more bullish, either approaching earnings or maybe even after earnings, but I'm not like promising it. I'm always going to hedge regardless because it's very important to manage risks when trading. But like I said before, it's looking like a pretty decent setup. It's going to likely make its way up to about 8 to 8.2 in my opinion. I'm watching this very carefully. And if it does get the breakout thanks to earnings, that would be a very, very good sign. I mean, it's very possible just looking at this technical setup. On the 4 hour time frame, it's looking pretty decent. It's been uptrending too. There's no clear sign of it like dropping. And there's a good chance it's going to try to break around 8 to 8.2 very soon, if not even higher than that, because it has this imbalance. I'm actually eyeing this. And we have a possible inverse head and shoulders that's forming. And so far, it's been trending up since that formed. So there's a good chance it's going to try to make its way up above $8. But I'm always going to be watching for confirmation because 7.5 is support anyways. The Nasdaq has a possible bearish cross coming on the 4 hour time frame, but there's no confirmation yet. It's also losing some momentum. The Nasdaq and the QQQ are looking a little bit weaker. There's no confirmation yet of anything bad happening to them though. If we're bearish on the Nasdaq, if it breaks below 13,195, it's going to come all the way down to fill this gap in the very low 13,000s. If that happens, tech is going to slow down. If it breaks above 13,330, it has some potential to push up close to 13,400. If anything, momentum is slowing down, so the odds favor it either trading sideways like it did today or continuing to just, downtrend. Either way, I mean, it's not looking very strong, so I'd be very careful on the tech side. Tesla is outperforming the Nasdaq. It's still very, very strong in my eyes. So there's a good chance Tesla's going to try to hold up. It could even try pushing up more. But like I said before, whether this takes a couple of days or like another week, if the Nasdaq starts trending downwards over the next week, that could slow Tesla down because it's looking a little bit weak. It's not like looking extremely weak, but it's not looking like strong either. It's looking more weak than strong, but not like, not like extremely weak, not like very strong either. If anything, still losing some momentum, so be careful with it. As far as SPX goes, if we're bullish, it could make its way to about what is this, 4,300? Could make its way up there if it's very bullish, but it needs to break the high it made previously. If it's bearish, you're going to be watching it break below previous support, which is 42.61. If that fails on us, it's going to come down to this next major level, which is 42.40. And if that fails us, it's going to fill this gap even lower to about 42.20. So watch all these levels. There's no clear sign of it, dropping just yet. I did see a bearish divergence that's present, but there's no sign of it getting rejected, and that's the reason why you got to watch the levels very carefully. On the VIX, it's down just a little bit. It's continuing to drop down. There's no sign of it bouncing, and the market may continue to cause it to remain this way. But if it does get a bounce from here, you're going to be watching resistance now at 14 because that's where it previously was. It's not very strong. Then we have closer to about 14.5 and 15 after that. So I'm watching those all very carefully. The dollar is continuing to hold up quite nicely. If the dollar breaks to 105, that could slow the market down, but for now, it's not affecting the markets too much, and it's just trading flat. Coinbase came down pretty hard, but it is trying to get a technical balance because of this. You're going to be watching that level. I think it was a break above 56. If that happens, you're going to be watching 58 for the gap fill. If it fails to do so, I'm sorry, it's 57 for the gap fill. If it fails to do so, you're going to be watching support closer to 50. If 50 fails us, it's going to come down once again to 48. I'm leaning in the direction that's going to try to push up just a little bit more, but like I said, we got to watch for confirmation. As far as Aapl goes, I told you if the 180 broke, you're going to be watching 178, and if that fails us, then you have the 50 EMA. Look what happened, it bounced perfectly off the 50 EMA, almost exactly there. However, Aapl is still trending down, which could slow SPY down and SPX, so be careful with this. There's no sign of it bouncing just yet, but this could change in the morning depending on how it moves. If Aapl turns bullish, you're going to be watching 180, then 180. This is like 180.8, followed by 182.7 after that. If Aapl turns bearish, once again, there's 178 and the 50 EMA. I'm once again kind of in the middle with Aapl because it's looking a little bit more bearish, but it has been dropping very hard and it's holding the 50 EMA. It may get a retest of it, then try to bounce after that. If that's the case, it could help the market to some degree. We got to watch these levels carefully. For Nvidia, it's getting a backtest. I predicted that this would happen. I said this intraday that Nvidia may get a backtest, and that's what happened today near the market close. Nvidia, if it's bullish, we're going to be watching 380. This is like almost 389, which is where this trend line is. If that breaks, if it breaks above this, there's 390, 395, then 400. If it breaks to the downside, you're going to be watching support at 385, 381, and then 377. Now, I'd be very careful with Nvidia for now because, once again, the trend on the 4 hours is still favoring the bears and there's no confirmation of it bouncing yet. So just watch these levels carefully and then we'll see how the market dictates it, especially by the time we open. I told you guys the bullish and bearish cases on Google. I was not actually more bullish on it. I was saying it's likely going to trade sideways, if not cool off a little bit. But instead, as the market held up, it continued to pump. It does have a bearish divergence that's still developing, but there's no sign of it dropping just yet. If Google starts pumping tomorrow, if we see this thing break the high it made at 28.88, we're going to be watching did I say 28? 128.88, sorry. We're going to be watching 130. If it fails to do so, if 127 fails us, it's going to come all the way down to about the 125 zone. If that fails us, there's the 50 EMA at 124.47. For now, momentum is slowing down. There's technically a bearish divergence, but there's no confirmation of it breaking below. If 127 fails us, then there's a good chance it's going to make its way down closer to the 125s. But first, we have to watch for confirmation. For Amazon and for bullish, there's going to be a 127 retest. If 127 breaks, it's going to make its way up to about 128.5. If Amazon fails to do so, you're going to be watching this zone right over here around 125 is the next major support. And we also have some support at about 125.8, almost around there. I'm leaning in the direction that it's very sideways and may cool off because of this bearish divergence, but we just need confirmation first. I'm not too sure which way it's going to go exactly because so much could happen in the pre-market. But like I said before, I'm still open-minded. I'm going to just watch these levels for the confirmation. Now, last but not least for Meta, if you're bullish, you're going to be watching resistance all the way up at about this 272.7 area. If that breaks, there's 275, then 276.5. For bearish, they're supported at 270, 269, and then 265. Overall, the trend looks a little bit more bearish on the 4-hour time frame, starting to trend down.